my name on the 4 o'clock one, so you've all been coffeeed up. Now, my work is in the area of young children. And if you'd make me feel at home, please start knocking over glasses, spilling water everywhere. If some of you could sit under your tables screaming my name, that would be wonderful. Because that's the environment I like to
see
work
we
in.
have at least one tiny adult with us in the room.
Yes.
And there'll be lots of other kids. So
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that into effect for me. So the title of our paper that I'm presenting today is Collaboration and Co-location and Making Sense of Digital Design in Early Childhood Games. Nope, not that.
Yep.
So the motivation for the work that we do, and I work in a team of 4 that are listed on the slide there, it came about from Professor Tony Oakley's work, who's an early years educator and physical education specialist from the University of Wollongong, who has done a significant study in the issue of physical activity in preschool-aged children. And the trend has been over the last, I think it's decade, for a huge increase in sedentary behaviour, which has correlation with the increasing obesity epidemic in Australia in childhood. So that's the big why we're doing this. It's to start alleviating and putting in place other alternatives to stop that obesity problem taking hold and showing parents and children that there's other ways of being engaged in activity. One of the other queries that's come up through Tony's research is parental knowledge of motor skill development. So we're talking here about things like kicking, walking, throwing, catching, some fairly fundamental life skills that I'm sure all of you can talk about. And earlier presenters talked about how hard it is to describe in words what it means to ride a bike. These researchers have broken down the skill of kicking to 3 fundamental sub-skills. And they're the things that we're talking to parents about through this app of how you can try to teach your child to kick better or to move better, to catch better. So those are the underlying skills that are going out to the parent population in this research. The other area that's of particular interest to me is the crossover from digital game into the real world environment. There's some companies out there like Osmo that have done some great work in this area where the child is playing on the digital device but interacting with a physical object. So as they move the physical objects, the iPad recognises what they're doing and gives them feedback in a digital context. And that's the model that we wanted to put into play with this idea of Jumpstart. So my collaborators are Tony Oakley, who looks at motor skill development and physical activity, me, who looks at the socio-technical interactions with a particular focus on technology in the early years education environment, Dr. Mark Freeman, who is a HCI and user-centered design researcher, and Dr. Grant Elmers, who's a graphic design researcher looking particularly at the development process of design and how you then deploy that and get feedback from multidisciplinary sources. The objectives of what we set out to do, like I said, was to convert the paper system to a digital design. And this in some part was opportunistic. I was meeting with Professor Oakley about other issues and I saw this Jumpstart program sitting as a card-based system on his shelf. And I am a mother of 4 young children, interested in different activities that I can do with them. So I asked him to tell me a bit about that project. And as he talked, I asked him more questions about, well, how do people use this system? And the wad of cards doesn't fit in your back pocket. It is thick, it's detailed, it's got diagrams, it's got instruction, follow-up activities and assessment. It's a very big, fat wad of cards. And my first thought as a techo was, why can't I have that on the phone? Why can't I use that in some other way that's easy for me to access when I want to access it? Because in its paper-based form, its primary audience was early years educators. So going into childcare centres, where programs are being run by trained educators who ran interventions to look at how this program increased physical activity in those children. So we had a conversation and we thought, wouldn't it be fun to apply for a bit of seed funding just to see whether we can do it? And that's what came about, or this project is what came out of that. Part of the other issues that have jumped up through our process, we're interested in investigating the design process for multidisciplinary and a multi-purpose audience. So trying to get the 4 of us together to talk one language is hilarious. And as we add in student participants into that, who are the graphic design students or coders, trying to translate what we all mean as researchers and academics and graphic design and physical education into one language has been a challenge in itself. And the multi-purpose audience is also one of our drivers. So to get something that appeals to the adult user and the child user to ensure that you've got that cross-motivation happening has also been significant. So the idea of pardon me, co-location and collaborative HCI knowledge to the problem has been raised earlier today. And this project really follows along with that process of looking at the different players and how we make sense of designing together. So how did we go about doing this? And what I'm reporting on today is the proof of concept that we have funding for through a program called the Global Challenges program at the University of Wollongong, looking at big issues that we need to try and find ways to solve. Thank you very much, Paul. See what you get when you say up to chapters. You get 3 glasses of water. So our first effort is to have engagement with design students, children's parents and educators, and to get all of those people on board for various stages of it. Because we're developing within a university context, being able to give graphic design students real-world experience to add to their portfolio and to engage with this process allowed us, well, on one level, cheap labour, but they were paid once they'd gone through the proof stage with us. But it also allowed us to get them, as part of their reflective practice as a student, to walk through this with us, put up initial designs, and you'll get to see some of them soon. And from their points of view, designing for 3 to 5 year old audiences. So what does a 20-year-old think a 3 to 5 year old is interested in? And then when the 3 to 5 year olds see it, what do they think? So the proof of concept that we put forward was the development of one skill from a set of 12, and we delivered that in an app, an iPad app at that. And we chose the iPad because at that time, the University of Wollongong had engagement centres through their Early Start initiative, which was our early years philanthropic funded foundation. And all of those centres we knew had been equipped with a number of iPads. So our initial development went onto that platform. It's since been made cross-platform to be more user-friendly to the general public. The diamonds, sorry, I'm a little weary. I'm used to cooking dinner at this time of night. I'm not talking about theories. So the design triangles that we have up there is a model that looks through this phase of discover, define, develop and deliver. And we're right in that middle one there, which is the problem questions, coming up with the research questions. So although we use this process for our proof of concept, now that we've been funded, we're going back through this process again to come back at it to understand more fully where the research questions are. And as I move through the slides, you'll start to see how we've developed those themes. So there's my monsters. They were the initials or samples of the sets of monsters that were developed for us by graphic design students. Now if you channel your inner 3-year-old, which ones do you think were the most popular for the 3-year-olds? Was it these ones? Was it these ones? Was it the bottom ones? Okay, so there is mix in the room. So your inner 3-year-old. For those of you who selected these ones, you were correct.
Yep.
Just a quick question, why those ones? They're purple?
They're simple?
Simple.
Simple.
What's wrong with these ones, the first lot up in the top left corner?
Too much going on.
Too busy? They were perceived as scary.
Yeah.
A bit too grown up. They're
But
grown
also
up.
they're not looking at you, they're not engaging.
Yeah, pointy.
Pointy sharp.
And I have to apologise, I honestly thought she was talking about her own kids when she was talking about her monsters. So I have to apologise to you and the ones at the bottom are just plain weird.
Yes, they are weird. So those did not get a look at. And in case you haven't come across a 3-year-old recently, they don't hold back on their opinions. If you ever want an honest opinion about what you look like or whether the monsters are great, ask a 3-year-old because they tell you in no uncertain terms, no swearing, but very clear what they do like. So we went forward with monster set number 2.
Or of course you could just hang out with SSIT members and I'm not promising whether or not we swear.
You've got choices here. This will be good for our next round of development. So we tried to understand more closely what happened, and once we'd chosen that core set, we then got to work at developing it further. Now keep in mind that we wanted these developed for teaching physical activity skills. So if you can imagine yourself throwing a ball or kicking a ball, we've chosen these lovely, friendly looking happy monsters here. Can they show me how to throw? Can they show me how to kick effectively? Position on the foot, the ball needs, we need to see the foot, the position on the foot. So although they're cute and cuddly and all the smiling, purpley things that children like, once we started rolling them out and trying to put the skills on top of them for what we needed them to do, all this boring adult stuff kicked in. And the design process that we went through then was this idea of adult realism versus child appeal. So we had to go with our promise of saying, of course they're the monsters we'll use in our app. That's what you've chosen, why should we make anything different from that? But as we started going through it and trying to teach those monsters or use those monsters, they couldn't be taught, what we needed to do, we started seeing problems with them. So Mr. Purple Spotty Person, his arms weren't usable. The green one didn't have any shoes on, and when you're trying to teach a child for positioning their foot with a ball to kick it, the terminology used in the training is the ball on the laces. If you don't have shoes on, you haven't got laces, it's very hard to demonstrate that. The winged monster in the top, we had problems with him. Wings don't throw balls very well, nothing that a child can relate to. Purple green furry monster, his arms and feet needed modification. The arms weren't long enough to do anything useful for us and couldn't be differentiated easily from the body. The purple, my colours are terrible today, he's red. The red one-eyed monster had no arms, he had 4 feet. That's a little confusing because not many people I know have 4 feet, but he was one of the most popular ones. But he did have a really good eye, and the eye was important for us because we needed to be able to show things like tracking eye movement, a monster being able to look where the ball was for him to click on the right ball. So we liked him for his eye, but not for his feet. And the last one with the blinking eyelashes to us, the feet needed to be bigger to be useful for a child to be able to identify that object. So what we wanted to do was try and use this set that the children had developed, because it's important for them to feel part of this process, to equip the adult users with enough information to be able to be confident users of this system with their children. So another remit of the Early Start Centre at UOW is to work with rural and remote communities that may or may not have a whole lot of community support to develop physical activity skills with their kids. So it was really important that we got in there at the right level, with the right level of instruction for both adult and child to work with this program. But it also had to be simple enough for the child to use without the parent. So there's all these tensions going on, which in effect most child games, if you want to download some kid games on your iPad and have a look, most of them have that simple aspect to them. But because this was also instructional, we needed to make sure we captured the adults as well. So from that program, we deployed one skill. We showed the kick, the 3 stages of kick, and we used our monsters to jump into that and teach a child how to kick it, and did a small user group of, it was around 6 children that took part in that skill development and were able to use it effectively. The educators understood it, the parents that we had on board were very happy to use it. There was no annoying music in the background, although we can add that later. But what it gave us the evidence for was that this was working in a digital context. So ramping it up to the 12 skills was our next goal. So at the end of last year, we applied for what's called the UOW Global Challenge Program funding, which is their highest level of funding over a couple of years. And it's under their grouping called Transforming Lives in Regions. And the remit of that is that transformations are taking place across the globe, impacting on the way we live and how we interact with the world around us. Now, in SSIT, we've got such a wide range of projects going on, and some of them, Peter Jakarta at a huge global level, the Africa project, again at that global level. This is working right down at the grassroots level, making change in individual family units, making change in small groups of children. But we're hoping that as it takes up and as we get the full one rolled out at the end of next year, that within that early childhood environment, if you capture these behaviour changes at that age, the transformational change throughout their lives is something that will flow back in to a societal change in terms of physical activity, motivational behaviour, and warmth of family engagement. Right this minute, we've got a research assistant going out, starting to collect data across childcare services. So we've upscaled this project now, and we've got, it's over 52 children now engaged in this first lot of testing. So our characters have gone through further refinement, and we've also thrown in another few sets of variations of friendly monsters with more usable limbs in place. So we start testing those, and we're doing like-it scale testing with 3 to 5-year-olds. It's quite hilarious watching it. It's modified like it, and there's no literature in that 3 to 5-year-old space about usability issues. So why? Because you have to be crazy to want to do it is one question, but it's really hard to extract quality data from that, and it's time consuming. So for us to collect the data we need, an adult, you would sit down and chat with them, you'd get a response back, you'd fill out a survey. We're now running 3 stages of testing with them that basically involve a smiley happy face or a smiley sad face to let us know their initial opinion. Then we break into small groups and we do group feedback about those monsters. The educator oversees all of that process and gives us a meta-analysis of, can you trust what little Johnny's actually saying, or does he say that about a lot of things? And then we're engaging with the children and their parents in a more formal dialogue where the parent can act as the interpreter of what little Bella means or what Johnny means about that purple monster when he says he likes purple. So the HDI question that we've come to is that there's a big gap for us to contribute to the literature and understanding development in that 3 to 5 year old age range. Now, when I talk about gaps in literature, there's a lot of work done in the educational value of apps from early childhood education views in the 3 to 5 year old ranges. From an ethical point of view, there's huge discussions going on about whether children that age should even be allowed to see a screen. I have the 4 of them, mine will use screens, but it's a very moderated screen view approach. They never get left with it. I'm with them most of the time. There may be minutes where I slip out to put another load of washing on or something, but it's not a babysitter. A lot of the issues that we have around childhood screen time come from old television views. So when television was first introduced, that's what our baseline is. But I don't think these technologies that we have now are equivalent to TV. So there's lovely ethical arguments, and they're quite heated in parenting forums about the use of technology in the early childhood space. Hopefully we've got a positive influence outcome on physical activity and sedentary behaviour patterns in preschoolers. Tony Oakley has an NHMRC grant looking at that and what the intervention of Jumpstart as a paper-based activity actually does to that sedentary behaviour pattern. And as soon as this is done, we will be replicating that intervention to see whether the digital one is as effective as the paper-based system. And if nothing else, get the discussions happening within families about how we use technology and what technology means to us as a family unit. That's my favourite monster. And what he does in the app is look to his eyes towards a ball, and you need to choose which ball he's looking at. So his one eye, even though he had 4 feet and was deemed useless for everything else, he has a purpose in life. And our monsters are designed to do that for the children, to show that no matter what they've got going on for them, there is a very valuable contribution they can make. So that's what I do. I play with young children and look at apps and welcome any questions. And you can play it later this year.